I'd like an Atari 2600 system, please, and everything that goes with it.
Everything? You sure you want everything?
I want everything.
Now you get a new low price, up to $30 in rebate offers, and a free pack.
Is that everything?
It's not everything. You can get nearly 300 different cartridges.
300?
That's nothing.
It's something.
But it's not everything. Soon there'll be a voice module, trackball, remote control joysticks, and a computer keyboard.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
The Atari 2600. Made in the late 70s, this was the birthplace of the home video game consoles. With graphics that barely made representational imagery, the games on this system were as basic as could be. Pong, Missile Command, Adventure, Outlaw. The list goes on and on. Not only does the Atari 2600 have the longest lifespan of any video game console, it is arguably the best-looking console of all time. Flash forward to the modern age of gaming. With powerful hardware and complicated controllers, a new wave of gamers has crept forth from the shadows. A large community that longs for the days of old when arcades ruled and controllers had only one button. Meaning to capitalize on this retro revolution, Atari releases their Atari Flashback in the year 2004. An extremely small system made to look like a miniature Atari 7800, the Atari Flashback sold very well. However, the fact that the controller was that of the 7800 and the hardware was based off of the NES in a chip left a bad taste in many retro gamers' mouths. Listening to the fan base, the next year Atari releases the Atari Flashback 2, a compact system made to look like the fabled Atari 2600. This plug-and-play game turned many heads upon its release, and rightfully so. Improving upon its predecessor in every way, the Flashback 2 ran off of the new Atari in a chip. This was no emulation, but a real Atari 2600 wrapped up in a neat little package. Using the original controllers from the 28-year-old Atari 2600 and having 40 built-in games, the Flashback 2 was not to be ignored. So, let's take a look at this very unique retro gaming console. Everything about this system just screams old school. The experience starts with the packaging it comes in. Most modern consoles come in packaging that is sleek and futuristic. However, the Flashback 2 kicks it old school with images of people having a blast, reminiscent of the golden age of gaming. Atari spared no expense with the Flashback 2. The system comes with two controllers that are not only 100% perfect replicas of the original Atari 2600 controllers, but are so true to form that they will work on an original 2600. This means if you have a controller that was made for the Atari 2600, it will work on your Flashback 2. Just to do a test of how accurate it was to the original Atari 2600, I plugged a Sega Genesis controller in, for they once worked on the Atari 2600. So, did it work on the Flashback 2? You better believe it did, proving that this is no imitation, but a true Atari 2600 with 40 built-in games wired to the hardware. In fact, the Atari Flashback 2 is such a perfect remake of the original Atari 2600 that many people who mod consoles have modded theirs by simply installing a cartridge slot into the game system and found that it would play the Atari cartridges just fine. Now, the Atari Flashback 2 replaces the Atari 2600 switch system with a more user-friendly button-based system. However, all of the functions are still there. For instance, on the 2600, we have an on-off switch, a black and white switch that can switch between black and white and color. We have the game mode selection, reset, and then here on the back we have difficulty switches. Well, on the Atari Flashback 2, we have your power button. We have your game reset button, we have two difficulty switches, you have a game mode select, and here on the back we have a way to toggle between color and black and white. Now, not all the games on the Atari Flashback 2 are Atari games that you will remember. In addition to 21 games that were released for the original Atari 2600, there are a handful of homebrew and prototype games that were never officially released for the system. Furthermore, if you have an Atari paddle controller laying around somewhere, one will find they can also unlock 2 more games that use the paddle by simply putting in a code on the joystick. Now, the Atari Flashback 2 is not without its flaws. While the system is a nearly perfect replica of the Atari 2600, it is small. Not as small as the Flashback 1, mind you. This system still looks good on your shelf. However, the Flashback 2 is very light, and when accompanied with the notoriously short cords of the Atari 2600 controllers, one might accidentally pull the system off the shelf in the heat of gameplay. Make no worries, however, this is a rare occurrence.
With such simple controls, every game on the Atari Flashback 2 can be picked up and played with little to no learning curve, making it ideal for parties.
In fact, I had a little get-together to test out the Flashback 2, and we played it all night, even winning over some hardcore critics of plug-and-play games.
As far as pricing is concerned, the Flashback 2 is hard to pin down. I've seen it range from $12 to upwards of $100, so it's really your call as to how much an authentic retro gaming experience is worth to you. It's next to impossible to find an old Atari 2600 that will work as well as the Atari Flashback 2. In addition, if you do find one that works, you will probably never own 40 cartridges to play. Not to mention the fact that the Atari Flashback 2 has many unreleased titles. So, if you're looking for an authentic retro gaming console and you don't really consider yourself a collector, I would suggest the Atari Flashback 2. I give it a 4 out of 5.